Hey everyone, George here from the F1 Chronicle, and the Canadian Grand Prix has been completed. So, with that in mind, I'm bringing you 5 things that we learned from the Canadian Grand Prix this evening. So, it was a wet start in Montreal, and every single driver, with the exception of 2, started on the intermediate tyre. Those drivers that were the exceptions to the rule were the 2 Haas drivers, Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hulkenberg, who both started on the wet tyre. And that gamble actually seemed to pay off really early on. The track was really, really wet. It was borderline full on extreme wet conditions. But that actually led to K-Mag and Hulk really, really climbing the order. They both started down the order. But Kevin Magnussen actually got all the way to P4 and Hulkenberg got to P8. But the track started to dry and the conditions went more towards those drivers on the intermediate tyres. So eventually they fell away a little bit. K-Mag came in for a stop, but that stop took too long and it cost him a lot of time in the pits. Hulkenberg's stop went more to plan, but he was further down the order. And unfortunately, the gamble for those wet tyres at the start did not quite pay off for Haas, missing out on points today. P11 and P12 for them. A good effort in the circumstances, you have to say, but at the same time, they would have been hoping for more with that. And it could have been more with K-Mag in particular. Like I said, if his pit stop was better, he could have done that. But yeah, next up, the one-lap pace of the Mercedes that we saw in qualifying in particular, it wasn't really replicated in the race. I mean, they got a good result today, don't get me wrong, but when George Russell was leading relatively early on, Max Verstappen and in particular Lando Norris was so much faster than him, and they would have got past him a lot earlier than what they did had there been more of a dry line around there where they could run it around the outside or whatever. But Russell drove really well in this race for sure. But yeah, but I've got to mention Lando Norris. He's the third thing I want to, third thing I want to talk about here. Norris had an unbelievable day today, and he got by Verstappen and Russell and pulled out a massive gap. 15 seconds, I think he pulled out in like 7 laps or something like that. But then the safety car came out. I think it was Logan Sargent who stopped out on track, and everybody pitted behind Norris. Norris suffered from a success DJ Khaled style because he was so far in the lead that because of that he ended up passing the pits before he could go in. Everybody else behind him pit for new tyres. And unfortunately, Norris, when he came in, he was caught out by that. Went all the way down to P3 as a result. And that cost him the race. If it wasn't for that, I think he would have won today. I really do. McLaren, I would say, were probably the fastest car this weekend, in the race anyway, especially. Very, very impressive for them. But on the flip side of things, oh my goodness me, Ferrari. Oh, Ferrari. Oh, they were so bad in this race. I mean, they qualified poorly, as we went over yesterday in the 5 things we learned from the Canadian Grand Prix qualifying. Do check out that video if you're not already. But, yeah, Ferrari was seriously bad today. Qualifying outside the top 10. They had no pace. Charles Leclerc had some sort of engine issue. He tried on a gamble on going onto the hard tyres, the dry tyres. That didn't pay off. He was lapped by everybody, and then he just came in to retire, which, honestly, for you, was probably just a bit embarrassed at that point. Carlos Sainz as well was showing that the car didn't really enjoy those conditions. He ended up spinning and went out of the race. Took Alex Albon with him. It could have been Alex Albon and Williams' first points of the season too if it wasn't for that. But yeah, a really, really bad day for Ferrari. And as equally a bad day for Sergio Perez too. I mean, I spoke about him in qualifying. He's signed this new deal until the end of 2026. Red Bull must be regretting their decision after this weekend because he was shocking. He was awful in qualifying, was like 16th or something at the start. Didn't make any ground up whatsoever in the race. He climbed a few positions because of people ahead of him going out of the race. But then eventually he ended up making a mistake. His front wing was off. He was out of the race. And on a day where I think both of the Racing Bulls, both of the RBs scored points, the second Red Bull driver never even looked like threatening in the top 10. It's quite embarrassing. But yeah, Canadian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen won it as well. That's another thing. I didn't mention that. Max Verstappen won. But a very eventful race. Very competitive, especially at the front. That's what you want to see at the end of the day. What do you think about it, guys? Let us know in the comments below. And yeah, Be sure to follow the F1 Chronicle for more video content in the run-up to the Spanish Grand Prix. It's in 2 weeks, guys, so we'll be covering that.